A Michigan wrestler, a former Michigan wrestler, took down a thief in his neighborhood. And this is a story that was first published by Fox in Atlanta and carried by Intermat. So I'm kind of re-reporting this story, but I thought it's an inspirational, fun story to share with you guys because this is the edition of don't mess with guys with cauliflower ear, okay? Just don't do it. It's not going to turn out well for you, okay? So, first of all, who is this wrestler? What happened? AJ Grant is the former Michigan wrestler. He wrestled at Michigan in the early 2000s. He was actually a two-time state champ and an All-American at Michigan. Two-time All-American, took fourth place twice in the early 2000s. Now, he was in his house. I don't know, he's washing dishes or something. He said he's washing dishes, and he hears some noise. He hears his dog barking. And he looks outside and he sees some guy just taking off outside. He actually sees a shed, his neighbor's shed, wide open. Then he sees some guy taking off with a lawnmower. And he knew it wasn't his neighbor. He saw it was somebody suspicious. Sees a U-Haul parked across the street. Well, Grant takes off out of this house. He's barefoot, mind you, barefoot, takes off out of his house, runs into the U-Haul, gets in a confrontation with the driver. The guy who's stealing the lawnmower ends up seeing what's going on here. He takes off. So Grant jumps out. He starts chasing after the thief, and he chases him down. I think it was like a block or two. Ends up picking him up, wrestling him to the ground. There's actually another, like a police officer, off-duty police officer, kind of patrolling the neighborhood, sees this going down. She runs over. She sees that Grant totally has this taken care of because, of course, he's wrestled. He knows what he's doing. He's just one tough mofo. He knows what's going on. Takes this guy out and ends up saving his neighbor's lawnmower, saving the day, I guess. He is the hero of this story, is A.J. Grant. So that's a fun story. And I have a little bit of a fun story of my own that's very much related to this. So first of all, let me know what do you think about this story, and how awesome is it that AJ was able to save the day? Now, as far as my story, and please, in the comments, let me know if you have any stories similar to this. It just kind of struck me because there was a very similar story in my own life. And I haven't shared a lot of personal stories, but this was one that I had to share. So this was back, I want to say, 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And there was and I was back in my hometown. I was back in Canonsburg, PA, and it was the summer. And actually, at the time, I was running a wrestling camp. We had a wrestling camp over the summer, and we had a couple guys helping out with that. Well, we wake up in the morning from before one of the sessions, and we hear, like, what happened? What's going on? Like, we hear some stuff on the news from somebody that we knew. And it was a kid who used to wrestle. His brother actually was still wrestling at the time. He wrestled at the high school, ended up transferring to Texas, ended up going to Pitt. So he was home for the summer. He was wrestling, or he was a former wrestler, and he goes outside. Or he's chilling in his basement. Okay, he's chilling in his basement playing video games with one of his friends. Well, they hear some noise, similar to the Grant story. Hear some noise, and they kind of look outside, and they see some guy, like, walking around. It's like midnight, looking through cars, and he's like, pulling on the handle, seeing if the car's open. And there were a couple that were open. He was opening it. Well, they were in his driveway. My friend, they were in his driveway. So they were like, we got to catch this guy. He's stealing our stuff. Which is crazy to me. I mean, you're just going after this thief, potential thief. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know if he had a gun. Didn't know if he had a knife. And, of course, that probably wasn't going through their head. So they go outside, and they run after this guy. This guy, the thief, takes off from the car, starts running, bolting. Well, these two guys, my friend and his friend, run down the street. They catch him, tackle him to the ground, hold his hands behind his back, and I don't think they punch him or anything. They just kind of wrestle him to the ground because he was a former wrestler. He knows how to wrestle. They end up calling the cops, taking this guy down. He ended up making the local news. We all see it in right before the wrestling camp, and it was just a very funny story. He ends up taking down this thief. So, listen, the moral of the story, my story, And grand story, don't mess with guys with cauliflower ear. That's all that it comes down to.